I've been caught, but I'm keeping on check. I've been taught, but I'm keeping on check.
Good afternoon, good evening. This is Dove Tusman. You're on Equal Footing. Deep dive tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Last week was really lighthearted. What a wonderful discussion with Rabbi Simcha Weinstein around superheroes and in the modern day comic book superhero universe and the effect of Jewish identity, the influence of all those Jewish writers and illustrators. And here we go this week with something that is, I was going to say it's not lighthearted, but it can be lighthearted. Maybe it's the definition of lighthearted, but certainly is required a great deal of thought from my side coming into tonight's show. I think it's really appropriate that it's the first show of the year, and it's about our personal experience of God. Different religions call it different things. Direct experience, revelation, being in His presence, transcendence, nirvana, merging with the absolute, or just personal religious experience. It's different than belief. It's different than worship. It's different than veneration. It's different than religious practice and whatever religion we do practice. We're talking about the direct experience of divinity. And if you're listening in, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Buddhist, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whatever faith you are, or atheist, really this transcends the epistemology of religion, kind of the theory of knowledge and the way we organize ourselves in our relationship with God. And it's about the experience. Is it important? Tonight's show, we entitled in our social media on the show, Feeling versus Believing. I think we'd all agree that to be a deist, to believe in God, is, of course, about belief. It's about faith. But does the feeling matter? Does the experience matter? I think you'll be surprised tonight at some of the topics we'll bring up. You might think, right, of course it matters. But, in the Abrahamic faiths, in Judaism, the first of the Abrahamic faiths, in Christianity and Islam, in chronological order of appearance on the planet, does it really matter? In the East, in Confucianism, Buddhism, Hinduism, I didn't state that exactly in the right chronological order. Confucianism, Hinduism, Buddhism. Does it matter? Does the personal experience of the divine matter? I'm joined tonight by two wonderful souls, two people that I count as friends, as mentors, who come from totally different parts, literally, of the planet. One from Korea, one from Long Island. Practice on the one hand, Zen Buddhism, on the other hand, Judaism in an Orthodox context, a traditional context. And both have been very clear before coming on the show, I'm not a scholar. I'm a practitioner. I'm experiencing this with our listeners, and both bring great humility, great sense of humor. I am so excited to be on the show tonight with Zen master, Buddhist monk, Doam Sunim, and Rabbi Yaakov Bankalter. And I'm going to start by introducing Doam Sunim. He's here in studio with me, and Doam Sunim is with one of his students, Muju Sun, who may at one point help in terms of if translation is needed, in case you hear her voice in the background. And I'll start by introducing Muju. She's been on the show with Doam Sunim before, and she's going to be, God willing, a Buddhist nun starting in June, and she's also completing her master's in cognitive neuroscience. It's really nice to have her in the studio again. Doam Sunim, it's such a pleasure to have you here again. We've been through a lot together on the show, talking about really personal matters. We did a show on death and loss and how to process that and how it fits into our spiritual journey. You've been so open and authentic on the show. As a Korean Buddhist monk, you've served as the abbot of the Chogyesa Korean Zen Temple in Manhattan, which I believe is on 96th Street.
Yes.
For anybody that's interested, check it out. It's spelled Chogyesa, Chogyesa Korean Zen Temple. You've had that role since 2012. You were ordained as a monk in 1986 by the Zen master Seng Sun after immigrating to Canada with your family in the early 1980s. And I think this is fascinating because both you and Rabbi Bankalter, in Judaism we'd call it Baal Shuva. You both didn't grow up religious. So you didn't grow up a Buddhist, I should say. You've found that religious path in life. I identify a lot with that and the changes in the spiritual journey. And you've shared before that growth into your Buddhist life began in early adulthood through some also trauma and things that happened to you, which you discussed on other shows. And since your ordination as a Buddhist monk and now a Zen master, I mean, you've been practicing Zen meditation now in both Korea and the United States for over 30 years. So, Doam Sunim, thank you. Welcome back to Equal Footing.
Thank you very much.
You're so bundled up. It's such a cold night. Last time we were in the studio together, we were wearing like linen. It was like a very different feeling. And my brother, my friend, Rabbi Yaakov, thank you so much for joining us. I hope you don't mind me being familiar, Rabbi Yaakov Bankalter, for those listening. Check out his congregation, always open. The doors are open. Rabbi Yaakov, I hope you don't mind me saying it this way. You don't even have to be Jewish. I mean, ideally, because, you're going deeper on your journey and so forth, but the doors are always open at your congregation, Chabad Loft, downtown Manhattan.
Actually, you don't have to even be human. We have dogs here regularly as you bring your dog. So we allow all creatures, human beings, dogs, you name it.
I love it. And for many who are listening, who maybe are not familiar with Chabad, the organization that I don't know if the organization is the right word, the denomination or the movement, the Lubavitcher movement, the Chabad movement that you're involved in. It's such a beautiful openness. As you said, to creatures, whether human or not, but always open doors to learning, to challenging, to questioning, to doubt, no judgments. In fact, Rabbi Bankalter, I know you grew up in a secular environment in Long Island, suburban New York. And I love how in one of your bios that you have on the website, it says, to you, Judaism felt more like a membership at a country club growing up, where one's status was based on the size of your bar mitzvah. And at that time, Rabbi Bankalter, Rabbi Yaakov, you were known as Jerry. And at Ohio State University, you were doing quite a secular education and in a fraternity and tending bar and parties and so forth. You met your lifelong rabbinic mentor and spiritual guide, Rabbi Aryeh Kaltman. I know in our past conversations how important he has been in your life, who simply started by saying, "Are you Jewish?" And obviously that question has so many levels of meaning, not just the superficial. And after many years of studying, you eventually went from being called Jerry to your ordination and becoming Rabbi Yaakov, and now your center, Chabad Loft, welcomes people of all walks of life in the streets of Manhattan. And I can attest to the power of Chabad Loft. Check it out, Chabad, CHABADLOFT.org, right, Rabbi?
.com.
Oh, great. You got the .com now. ChabadLoft.com.
Yeah.
Go to a delicious Shabbat dinner. Go to services, the beautiful Kavana space that they have downstairs at 10 East 8th Street. So, okay, let's get into it. I am going to take the gloves off, Doam Sunim and Rabbi Yaakov, and just start with the direct question to you here in studio, Doam Sunim. If you are a Buddhist and you don't have a direct experience of God, are you really a Buddhist? I mean, is the experience essential to calling yourself a Buddhist, or can you just have the faith and the belief without the inner experience? And what is your experience of God?
My experience is just I'm looking at you. Did you get it?
I don't know if I got it. Please tell me more.
My experience is, if I explain, I'm clear in this moment. I'm aware, I'm sitting, I'm talking to you. Everything except that, nothing there.
Is that to mean that the mundane life, whatever's going on in the moment is the experience of God, and there is nothing in the Buddhist
That's not
there's
God,
nothing
that's not
transcendent.
Buddha, that's not truth, that's not any name of that. Just the present, be here.
Okay. Rabbi Yaakov, I would argue, again, I'm going to go back to this big word, epistemology, kind of the theory of knowledge, where we organize knowledge and religiously. That's epistemologically different than in Judaism. I mean, it's not, or is, maybe I'm wrong. What is it, what in Judaism, what is the personal or direct experience of God?
Well, you mentioned, let me go back, you mentioned my personal story before, how I grew up as a secular Jew, and to me, Judaism was a country club. Yes, it's exactly the way I perceived it. It was more like a status. And then what changed for me was when I began to discover the spiritual, experiential part of Judaism, based on mystical tradition. So experiential is definitely very important. It's totally necessary, and for a person to strive to come closer to Hashem for spiritual growth. However, at the same time, when you come close, you come to recognize that my experience is not the foundation of my connection to God. It's part of the relationship, but it's not the essence of the relationship.
Right. Okay.
And we want to incorporate, it's a balanced approach. We want to incorporate a sense of personal fulfillment and a personal experience of, especially let's call it transcendence, a sense of a feeling going above your reality, going out of your reality, and to feel that is incredible. But God and my connection to God is not limited to my personal experience. So if you have no personal experience, are you still connected to God? 1,000%.
That's the question. You are. Okay. And that does seem to be, I didn't mean to set you up, but that does seem to be the Abrahamic or Western approach, is that you don't have to experience God for you to have a relationship with God. God is. And
well,
go ahead, correct me.
I would say it's a little bit, I'm sorry, it's a little bit of both. At the essence, no, you're right. You don't need that, but if you don't have a human, God understands the human experience as well. Meaning we're human beings in a body, in this world, but we also have what's called the neshama, which is a part of God, which is actual God, which transcends the human experience. So if we only have this dogmatic connection
the
to God,
neshama is what? The soul?
The soul, the godly experience of divine reality, which for most of us is very much hidden within the deep recesses of our inner psyche that we might not experience. So if we don't have the experience, we're losing out on the opportunity to come closer. Then we kind of are missing something. So what we haven't necessarily developed an inner perspective. We want to have a feeling of God, but on the other hand, that feeling of God does not represent the essence of our connection, and more so, a personal experience sometimes could be off. Maybe what you're experiencing isn't God. Maybe you're experiencing your ego. Maybe experiencing yourself. Even a spiritual experience doesn't necessarily mean it's God. So,
right.
So it's so it's a combination. But yes, our essential bond with God is not about my personal experience. But on the other hand, we want to strive to have a personal experience because that makes a more balanced approach to life. Because we want to feel connected to God in our lives.
So we're going to take our first break in a minute, but so to bring this a little bit down to earth for listeners, we're talking about personal religious experience. Different religions and faiths call it different thing. Revelation, transcendence, direct experience. This isn't actually as, controversial as one might think in terms of how it's cast theologically. the concept of religious experience theologically is largely in different, both East and West. We use the classic William James interpretation, which is it's something direct. It's a direct experience that is some way evidentiary for a person, whatever that means for that person. It's the feeling of God's presence, not the theorizing or the belief in God's presence, but the actual feeling that I experienced God. And I'll go in one of the other segments here. We'll read a couple of quick anecdotes on that front. But then, and to leave folks thinking about this over the break, there is what's the religious experience argument. And what this does is basically take two different views. You have is your belief in God based on evidence? And there's two answers to that, no or yes. If the people say no are often called evidentialists. They say if there's no evidence, so it's not rational to believe in God. People who say yes actually fall into two different categories. One group says, I believe in God because I have evidence of that belief. I have an experience. I have an experience in meditation. I have an experience of a miracle in my life. I have a direct experience of God that is happening now, as Dom Sunim said, or has happened in my life. And other folks who say yes, is the belief in God rational, or do you believe in God? It's not because of evidence. They don't need it. Say, I believe in God because it is. And we'll come back to this after the break, but it is a difference between East and West. I see Dom Sunim nodding his head. And both approaches are beautiful, but that's where we want to get it. What is that difference between I believe in God because I've experienced that God exists, or I believe in God because I know God exists, even if I hadn't had the direct feeling? Okay, we'll come back after the break talking about direct religious experience with Rabbi Yaakov Bankalter and Zen Master Doam Sunim. Call in, tell us about your belief or non-belief based on direct experience. How have you experienced God in your life? You can call 718-303-9090. That's 718-303-9090. Or you can text a comment or question if you're shy about being on the air live to 917-428-4062. That's 917-428-4062. We'll be right back.
Hallelujah. I think my angel's gone to Vegas. Sipping hallelujah. Holding aces in her hand. Hallelujah. As she's singing Rock of Ages. Hallelujah. On the table at the sand.
Equal Footing is brought to you in part by DocuVax. It's a tough time out there. We're in our, fourth, fifth wave of the pandemic, and our medical records are top of mind. We often have to prove we have a vaccine, or we've been properly vaccinated to enter into a food and beverage venue or a concert or a Broadway show. We may have our children at school being asked for more extensive medical records than before. Take control of your medical records. They don't belong to your doctor. The doctor may have them, but you may be spread amongst different doctors, but it doesn't belong to them. Your records don't belong to your health insurance company, and they damn sure don't belong to the government. DocuVax, DocuVax.com, or you can download the DocuVax apps on the iPhone or Android app stores, allow you to easily store and validate. And that's the key thing. You get doctors and nurses on call for you 365 days a year to validate your medical records, like immunization records, lab results, even x-rays and MRIs and serology panels and so forth. And then show what you need to get a referral to another physician more inexpensively, or to show information to a university or school, whatever it may be, on your terms, without showing information that's confidential. And you can cover over 60 different important elements of your medical profile in the DocuVax system, from flu and COVID and tetanus vaccines to colorectal and breast cancer screenings to blood type information and allergies. And you get reminders when you need to do a preventative screening or take a vaccine. In thinking about DocuVax, I think as a pet owner, The rabbi mentioned dogs earlier. I know he and his wife are pet owners as well. It's you get more information about your pet and their needs to get vaccines and medical tests than you often do about yourself or your own children. There's no system that is systematically reminding you, keeping track of your medical records. So get it together. Get your information onto DocuVax.com or download the easy-to-use DocuVax app or call, especially if you want a group discount. Let's say you're a small or medium-sized business and you want to sponsor a DocuVax subscription as a benefit, kind of like a gym membership. It's a great, super low-cost benefit for your employees. You can get group discounts by calling 833-859-1933. That's 833-859-1933. And here's the punchline. It's $7 a month, $6.99 per month, and you can privately access all of your medical records from a secure HIPAA-compliant digital storage facility, and medical professionals are on call for you, included in that price, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to validate your vaccine records, blood tests, or anything else in your medical locker. You could literally save as much money as your entire annual subscription, less than $80 a year for DocuVax, in saving one referral fee from a physician, just having some sort of validated blood test so you can get a follow-up or whatever it may be. So put an end to worrying about if you or someone else is up to date on a particular vaccine or blood test or important preventative screening. Take control of your medical file and sign up at DocuVax.com or download the DocuVax app, or for a group discount, mention you heard it on Equal Footing, and you get a group discount by calling 833-859-1933. That's DocuVax, 833-859-1933.
I've been caught, but I'm keeping on to. I've been told.
All right, I'm Dov Tuzman, and I'm here with Zen Master Doam Sunim, and on the phone with us, Rabbi Yaakov Benkhalter. Feeling versus believing. Does our personal experience of God matter? So, Doam Sunim, before the break, you looked me straight in the eyes. That was intense when you answered that question. Like, what is your experience of God? You're like, now. It's just the here and now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put out a theory to you and Rabbi Benkhalter about spiritual practice, because I've lived in India and I haven't practiced Buddhism, but I lived in an ashram at one point in my life, and as you know, I'm Jewish, and that's where I am now, and my spiritual journey is firmly rooted in the Jewish faith. So I've experienced spiritual practice both in East and West. And here's my theory to both of you. In the East, spiritual practice, whether it is meditation or prayer in the form of chanting, or yoga, or even the ritualistic prayer of the mala beads, where you're doing a mantra over and over, to me is less about veneration or worship and more about experience, like through the breath. I think in Hinduism, like pranayama, like the breath work, through meditation. You're actually trying to have an experience of the divine. And my experience, my perspective, Rabbi Yaakov, is that it seems to be that in my Jewish life, worship, davening, prayer, is a little bit more intellectual. It's more about like believing and reading and cognitively processing as opposed to experiencing. Am I right or am I wrong? Doam Sunim.
Yeah, that's your explanations. Okay, so would you mind I tell a little about that? Okay, all kind of practices you explain. That's right. That's all kind of experience. Okay? We use that for what? That means like first, all those kind of practice technique is make our mind is more concentrations. Without the concentrations, mind cannot become clear. If we are not clear, we cannot see clear, we cannot hear clear, we cannot touch, we cannot feel clear. Always foggy and unclear. That's why we need kind of a practice use those kind of technique, yoga, mantra, whatever, breathings, anything. That's just the foundation of a basic practice.
In a certain sense, I would say then that my theory is correct when it comes to Buddhism, that the technique is to achieve a particular result in your mind and body, a particular like experience or lived reality.
If you practice that, some kind of experience is possible. But that's just if you're hungry, you eat some food and you can feel full. Same as that experience, kind of the sensation or some kind of mind clear. That's, if you practice all those kind of technique, you can have those kind of experience. But that's not really is the purpose of the experience.
It isn't. It is not the
No.
purpose.
Not at all. But you can have experience. You have to pass by until.
So the purpose of the spiritual practice in Buddhism is the lack of experience? It's the clarity and the silence?
That is that's a little different, the approach, and the Eastern and the Western approach.
So, Rabbi Yaakov, in terms of the Western approach, I don't know if you need me to kind of repeat the question, but am I right or wrong in the way I think about like prayer and devotional practice in the Abrahamic context?
Yeah, I mean, when you say the Western approach, I can't speak on behalf of all Western, quote, Western religions. I can speak on behalf of the Jewish approach, and particularly the mystical Jewish approach. Is that, yes, there is a great emphasis on using your intellect. It is intellectual. And that's each person according to their abilities to come to their own understanding of God, try to expand their perspective of what God is, to go out of their boundaries of assuming God is what is something that I have some connection to based on my life, based on my parents, based on my education, based on how I was raised, based on even on my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God is unknowable as God, not because we can't know Him, but by definition, God is not defined by any law of this world. He
Right.
created those laws. They are His creations.
Mm-hmm.
So that itself is part of growth. The more we come to that understanding, you could say on some level, it's really through that understanding that we come to experience God. The more we understand how far, so to speak, we are, but yet at the same time how close we are. Meaning to say is, the example giving in Torah teachings, in Hasidic Torah teachings, is you'll say the number one, or let's say the number 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000. Which one is closer to infinity? They're all equally distanced from infinity. Infinity has no connection to 1,000,000,000, has no connection to 1,000,000, and no connection to one. It is completely separate from that. So 1,000,000,000 to one, to one is very far, but it's larger. But there's almost some level of connection. But infinity has no connection to one. And on some level, we as we study and we learn, we grow, we understand that on one hand, God is totally unknowable, undefinable, but yet at the same time, He created this world, He created my reality, so He understands me. So we try to, once again, bring harmony between those two realities. Essentially, my connection to Him is not bound to my awareness or my experience, but how, on the other hand, can I incorporate that in me as a human being? Because if I don't, then it doesn't affect me as a person, and I can remain a separate entity from that belief. If I'm a believer, but it doesn't permeate my reality, my personality, my daily life, then there's something wrong with my spirituality. So
Well, I love
we
that
don't
you-
want to limit it.
Yeah, I love that you bring up the the analogy of kind of in the relationship between one and infinity. And in Judaism, we often describe God as the, ineffable, that which can't be expressed or seen in the physical form. And in the same time, I must admit, have a little bit of religious jealousy, so I'm saying it somewhat tongue-in-cheek, around the Eastern paths that seem to be more directly experiential, because I think of in the Jewish faith, our examples of direct godly experience, like Moses in the burning bush, or Jacob wrestling with the angel, or the parting of the Red Seas. And to me, it's like infinity in one. Like it feels like some extraordinary thing that I'm asked to believe in, but I haven't actually experienced. And and then you look at other other faiths. You have like the experiences of Arjuna or Muhammad or St. Paul or whatever that are like that too, that feel like very like in the distance, like something that isn't in our daily life, but we're asked to believe in. And no matter how ardently we believe in them, those moments, if we haven't actually felt, if we haven't experienced the presence of God directly in our lives, it feels to me like a harder spiritual path. Now, I'm not saying I haven't experienced, because I do want to get to personal experience later in the show, but, would you acknowledge that, Rabbi Yaakov, that in a certain sense our path, the Abrahamic path, or at least specifically the Jewish path, is in a certain sense harder because it doesn't rely on that experience in meditation each morning or what have you?
I would say opposite. I think it's easier because not everyone. There are many people and many Jews who will meditate and have that path in their life, whether they're practicing Judaism, whether they're practicing Buddhism or other religions. But I would say the majority of the population are not, so to speak, so spiritual. Does that mean that those people don't experience? I say they do. Everyone experiences God, and certain people experience it in their own way. So, for example, someone might not get the experience of God through meditating. They might have the experience of God by when they go to a holy place like the Kotel, where something about the holiness of that spot creates a certain sense,
like a burial site of a spiritual master.
Or let's say on Yom Kippur. There's so many people who will experience something on Yom Kippur. Actually, last time I was on your show, I spoke about this. When Sandy Koufax said, "I'm not going to play baseball. I'm not going to play the World Series on Yom Kippur," it wasn't because he was meditating. It wasn't because he was religious. But that was an experience of God. Something in his soul created a feeling that said, I am a Jew, and I don't care how important this is to the whole world, I cannot play on Yom Kippur.
Right.
That, I would say, is an experience.
Being identified as a Jew, that part is easy. It's the part
I'm not saying being identified.
Sandy Koufax actually experience.
Can you imagine? It's more than being identified as Jews. People are clearly, they want to identify as a Jew. Some people aren't even Jewish, like to identify as a Jew. It's more, when Sandy Koufax, the whole world was, wanting him, for sure, I'm sure in California, Los Angeles, when we were playing in the World Series, he had to go against something. It was more than just a Jewish identity. It was something in him. I'm calling that an experience of divinity that pushed aside the world, and it was a trend. When I'm calling that transcendence. I'm like one example of transcendence.
Okay.
Meaning to say, in that moment, the world disappeared, and all that mattered was a truth that he experienced in his divine reality, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he meditated, and it doesn't do with the fact that he even, whether he fasted. I don't even know if he fasted on that Yom Kippur. I don't even know if he, ate a bacon cheeseburger that day. But in that moment, it was his soul pushing forth a a reality of God which superseded the reality of the world. That, to me, I would call that a divine revelation,
Right.
an experience with God, which is not limited to a meditative experience, which
Right.
some people might get to with meditation, and other people get to with other experiences.
Well, we're going to get back. We're going to take another break, and we're going to get back to you, Doam Sunim, to help us understand a little bit better the connection between belief and experience in Buddhism. Based on some of our dialogue, I'm not even sure the belief part is that necessary. But
Sure.
we'll be right back.
Melody softly soaring through my atmosphere, where your soul meets body.
Equal Footing with Dove Tasman is sponsored by MDCS Dermatology, your experts in skincare. With 2 Manhattan locations and 4 offices in Long Island, including Plainview and Commack, the dermatologists and skincare surgeons at MDCS are proud to be affiliated with the Albert Einstein College of Medicine and New York Presbyterian Hospital. So schedule your next skin exam in one of MDCS's convenient New York area locations. To make an appointment, go to www.mdcs.live or call 212-661-DERM. That's 212-661-3376. You could even schedule a virtual video visit with MDCS's board-certified dermatologists from the comfort and safety of your own home. So go to www.mdcs.live or call 212-661-3376. And don't forget to mention Equal Footing for 15% off all cosmetic procedures.
I've been caught, but I'm keeping on to. And I've been told.
You're back on Equal Footing. I'm Dove Tasman, and I'm here with Zen Master Doam Sunim and Rabbi Yaakov Bankhalter, and we're talking about revelation, the direct religious experience of God, and is it important? Doam Sunim, on the break, we were talking, as you were listening to Rabbi Yaakov, about the difference. There really is a difference between the Eastern and Western approaches with respect to belief. So I just want to really put a pin in that question. On the Buddhist path, is belief in God important? Does it matter?
I can say by my experience, my understanding, not Buddhist, not other religions. Okay? I like to ask you, Dob, do you believe God?
I do.
Do you believe God created everything?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm an evidentialist. I believe in God. I was an atheist for a portion of my life, and for those of you listening, I think this is an absurd topic and too esoteric. The genesis of tonight is that I was an atheist at one point in my life, and I believe in God not because I decided to, or at least not rationally decided to, but because I feel like I've had experiences of the divine in my life.
You know, the direct question, clear question means a clear answer, okay?
I'm scared. Go ahead.
Okay, do you believe God?
Yes.
Do you believe God created everything?
I don't know.
That's the problem. If you truly believe God created everything, what's the problem? All things happen right now. What's the problem? Everything is God created. We talking, moving, all nature, people, everything God created. What's the problem?
So you're saying, if I understand you correctly, that in fact I need to not only experience, I need to also believe at the same time.
Fully believe means there's no more belief. Lack of belief means still you're looking for the belief, or I want to believe. Is it belief? If you fully believe, why we need the words of belief?
Right. No, that is that's a philosophical. There is a position that if you're a real theist, that if you really believe in God, you don't even need to have these discussions because it's irrelevant.
Right. That's the point. Okay. If you are not, you have to try something to completely believe until you believe that.
But Doam Sunim, I remember when we were on the show together some months ago, And you very movingly talked about a heart-wrenching experience. I think it was the death of a friend, if I remember correctly.
Right.
That led you to actually experience one day, if I remember, you were in nature. I don't want to put your words in your mouth, but you had a direct experience of the divine that day.
I don't know, divine or whatever. That's my personal experience.
But that was what set you on your spiritual. That's what set you on your spiritual path.
That made me the more thinking about the practice on the truths or about my true self.
But I'm going to challenge both you and Rabbi Yaakov because I happen to know both of you personally and care for both of you and have a lot of admiration for both of you. Both of you actually had, in a certain sense, personal revelations in your life. You were on one path, and you had an experience,
right,
of, I would say, of the divine that led you to different life paths. So to the premise of the show, doesn't that mean that actually the direct personal experience, the revelation, is essential to our belief in God?
That's if you believe that God is wrong, that's wrong understanding. Okay, all kind of you can have experience or something awakening, all kind of things is on the way. Okay, even you have that experience, you have to take away. Keep going until you be completely. Means that there's no more believing or not believing. Even you have experience, you're not fully enough to believe. That's not complete. Okay. If you stay there, that's nothing. You have to keep going.
It's like a spark.
Until complete. There's nothing to there. Yeah. God created everything.
I do think for those listeners that have struggled with their belief, have had existential crises, or maybe don't believe in God, or not sure they believe in God, I think one thing a lot of us who have gone through that part of the journey share is a dubiousness about anything we're told to believe in that we haven't experienced. And so I think religious life can feel quite empty. I know, Rabbi Yaakov, you and I have spoken about this personally. It can feel quite empty when it's just ritualistic, or when it's just based on like the, Pascal's wager. You guys familiar with Pascal's, the philosopher Pascal said, you don't really have to think too much about whether God exists or not. Just live your life as if God exists, because if you bet that God exists, you'll be okay in the afterlife.
Okay.
Wait, hang on a second. Excuse me. If that's the only reason to believe in God, he said, was, it's like hedging your bets. I'm colloquializing it a little bit, but spiritual life is so empty that way. And, for me, the synthesis of experience and belief, and where I feel like in a certain sense spiritual life has really begun, is when it wasn't intellectual, when I actually, in a couple of times in life, one, a near-death experience, another, several in life, but one even just several months ago when I was in the verge of potentially something absolutely horrible happening in my life, and I feel like I witnessed a miracle. It's those moments that feel more important to me than a year's worth of doing a particular prayer or following a particular rule. Rabbi Yaakov, I hope you're not in studio, so I can't see your facial expression. Are you rolling my eyes? Am I a bad Jew?
No, not at all. As a Chabad rabbi who's based in downtown Manhattan, Greenwich Village, I've had this conversation over and over again in different forms, in different ways, and this question about belief and, and about our relation with God and what it means in so many capacities. Believe me, you're far from making me feel that, God forbid, that you are not a good Jew, so to speak. I don't think so at all. I think it's very fair, and I think it's better for someone to acknowledge and recognize their, struggles with belief and trying to incorporate God into their reality. And I think the more honest we are, the better they'll be. The easier will be to overcome those struggles and find a path and find a deeper connection. I think if it just pops into your mind and you just accept it, then there's to a certain degree, I can't say that 100%, but usually that's healthy. You know, there should be a struggle. It's a relationship. It should be a back and forth. You grow, you fall, you get back up, you try again, you go this way. This happens in your life. Belief is a continuous struggle battle that in your life, as you mature, it becomes more real on a human level. That's what I would say.
The other day, not that long ago, just in the last couple of weeks, I was at dinner and I wasn't wearing my kippah. I wasn't wearing my yarmulke, and I had a reason for not doing so. Whether I should or shouldn't have is a topic for another time. But I wasn't. And someone came over that I knew from a congregation on the Upper East Side, and they said, "Oh, now good things have happened in your life, so you're not religious anymore." And I laughed because I thought, actually, I feel more religious than ever. But doesn't necessarily correlate exactly to someone else's
that wasn't
view.
I mean, maybe they were being humorous, but that wasn't
It wasn't humorous, yeah.
No, yeah. But yeah. I mean, listen, we all have to be honest and not expect ourselves to always be in a state of mind that we're always in a perfect place where especially when we're being tested. God forbid, we're going through our own challenges. Someone's going through something in their life that's testing their faith, physical health or mental health, or feeling usually depression and negativity will automatically feel less connected to God. This is all part of the human reality, which God created that as well. So He understands that. He created struggle, so He has to understand that there is struggle, and to a certain degree, it's part of our mission is to be struggling. For most of us, you know, we weren't born righteous people who automatically just do the right thing, and it'd be a boring world if we did. So struggles and belief is part of being a normal human being. Yeah. And the main thing is to stay in the game and try and overcome those struggles. And there are many ways that we could do that, not just one.
And that concept of suffering and struggle, Doam Sunim, is so central to Buddhist philosophy and life. I mean, the Four Noble Truths of Buddha, and that, you know, suffering exists and there is cause for suffering, but yet there is an end to suffering. And I think that Doam Sunim, one of the things that's so attractive to Eastern thought and practice, coming from, at least I can say from a Jewish perspective, is the synthesis of the intellectual and the basic experience, the daily experience.
Okay. You know, the Zen tradition, we said, if you really want to go through this gate, means like the gate means to go reach the truth. Okay? Maybe reach the God or reach the Buddha nature. Don't arise your thinking, good or bad, or right or wrong. All your thinking, all your understanding, all your judgment, discrimination, you never go through to the truth. That's gate up. Okay? But we're talking 100 years like this. Not even one step cannot go in. It's better you drop all of the thinkings, all of the feelings, and then everything is God create. Why you make a trouble? You just accept it. Good and bad, or anger, sad, and everything is you accept it. Isn't it?
Yeah, I think that approach is, like I said, is very attractive. The simplicity and the beauty of that. You know, one listener, we'll go to a break and we'll take a caller who's been patiently waiting, but one listener wrote in, to remind us that tonight is Christian Orthodox Christmas Eve, and also Greek Orthodox Christmas Eve. So we're having a Jewish and a Buddhist discussion tonight, so now we get a Christian voice at the table. And this listener expresses that for them, it's really just fundamentally about love. So they said God does exist, otherwise we wouldn't be able to feel unconditional love for each other. If you have felt love once for someone, you would never have a doubt about God's existence. In my opinion, that's the essence of God experience.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned that comment now. That, to me, feels like a Buddhist approach.
It doesn't matter Buddhist or God create everything. Why you make a Buddhist or whatever difference?
Why
Okay?
am I creating duality?
Yeah, everything accept it. Okay?
Rabbi Yaakov, we're going to take a break, but can you give me like the yes or no? That Christian listener's comment, is that synthesized with Jewish philosophy? Is love all we need? That should be the musical break. Next. Love is all
I'll put it
you
this
need.
way. I'm a big Beatles fan. I love the song, but I don't know. It's nice to have love, but no,
Right.
love is not all we need.
Right, it's not
Love is not all we
sufficient
need.
in Jewish.
Love is one thing that God created. We have 7 emotional realities, and it's one of them. It's good to have love. Don't get me wrong. I like it.
Count
I like
on the
love.
Jewish
And I love
perspective
the
to make
song.
things
All we need is
more
love.
complicated.
You know, you make a God already mistake.
Who did? Me or Rabbi Yaakov?
Anybody make a God already mistake because God is everything. So why you make a God and the other different?
Right. And that,
Right?
I think, that is shared. That, right, Rabbi Yaakov? That is a shared belief between Buddhism and Judaism.
Yes. I think what often tells
The illusion
people,
of
when people say
separation.
God, when people say, is God a loving God? And I try to explain it from my own experience and what I've learned. God created love. He is the source of love. It's not that there's God and then there's love. Love is not a tool that God uses. As if that's the case, then love is a God unto itself. Everything, and I agree with my friend here who just said that God is everything. But God is not everything. He created everything. He's the source of everything. God is the source of love. God is the source of fear. God is the source of all these things. So love is a manifestation of godly energy into this world that he chose to express a part of himself. But it's not, God is not limited to love the way we are. For us,
Right.
love preceded us.
I
But
love
didn't
this.
precede God.
This listener's listening real time, and they're just saying that what they meant by that was not necessarily romantic love. So,
Right.
and it's a clarification. I'm going to make an executive decision, Doam Sanim and Rabbi Yaakov, because I don't want to interrupt this flow. We're going to skip our last ad break, and I'm going to ask for forgiveness from one of our sponsors, Manhattan Medical. And I want to take this really patient caller who's been online and I think, let me see if I can do this. Oh, I need Dimitri's help. I can't get line 4 on the air off of my pad here. Let's see. All right. I think it's Stan on line 4. Is it Stan?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Stan.
Bingo.
How are you?
First of all?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, I'm glad you sound much better, too. You over that thing. I'm very happy for that.
This week is more fun or less fun than last week?
Well, anytime you're on, it's more fun because your topics run from high to low to middle to red. So you have good shows. You know that. Anyway, let's get to
I'm
it.
bracing myself. Go for it.
No, don't brace yourself. It's somewhat difficult to have to say what I have to say to these two gentlemen. The divine. I am not a believer. I gave it up. I stopped dealing in fantasy a long time ago. For me, I was looking for the divine, and it never showed up. It's never been there. And solid evidence for me was the ultimate epiphany, and that was 9/11 for me. To me, I watched that, and I sat there, and I was a good Jew at that time, and I watched, and prima facie evidence in my face, and to all. I could only imagine if there was a divine, he would have stopped these people. It would have stopped everything, but there was no answer. And the ultimate lunacy was that people on one of the planes who probably believed in divine were praying for help from a divine that turned its face or it never was there to begin with. The other thing is the divine of we have to believe in a divine. If we don't, we're more religious than the other person. Ask the 6 million Jews who walked into the ovens and the gas chambers while they were praying for divine intervention. There was none. Or to our friend in the East here, when 2 to 3 million Cambodians were executed over a couple of years, there was no Buddha, nothing to help them. They must have prayed nothing. So from these examples and evidence, it has come to me, just me, that there is nothing. Now you can pray as you want, you can believe in Hashem, and you can believe in Buddha, but the evidence is solid The evidence is there. A personal thing, maybe when they're meditating, that's fine. But to all of us who've seen the facts and have seen the prima facie in history, there is nothing. I'm sorry to say it. You may not. Both of you have studied and worshipped a long time and so forth, and I respect that you did that. But the evidence is clear. It's right on the table. And I listened to what you... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. And you allow me to use one of this word I've been practicing pronunciation of. So epistemologically, you're an evidentialist. You're saying you need to see the evidence of God's existence. You need to feel it.
I gave up the fantasy a long time ago.
But if you had evidence, if you had a direct personal experience,
the evidence has solidly on the table. I mean, let's be honest. It's been there for 50, 100 years too. It's there. Just you don't look. When you believe, you believe, and I respect these people believe what they believe. Absolutely, I would defend their right to pray and whatever they wanted to do, but I wouldn't pray because I know in my thinking there is nothing, and proof is there. I'm not making it up. The evidence is in front of you. So, you can. The gentleman from the East, I respect him, but I was in Vietnam. I saw hell, and so forth. I didn't see any, divine being helping anybody there, really. And so the history of our people stands on its own. I'm not, going to the guest. No, but, they were praying, saying prayers to their God. Nothing.
In Vietnam.
And not just Vietnam. In World War II, and our Jewish brothers
Don
and sisters.
Sunim, what do you think of
it's fact. I'm not making it up.
No, I hear you.
Gentlemen, the sir, you are great. I think you are ready to really reach God and the Buddhas.
Oh man.
Means like you not expect fantastic or something God you expect you made the Buddhas. That's not correct. Now it's time for you to see your true self. What's going on inside of you? If you truly clearly see that, you see the God or the Buddha or whatever. It's not in outside, not by your concept, just to be there. It's not form. It's not kind of shape of something old man or good man. It's just everything is just like that.
I don't understand what you're talking about, sir. I mean, Buddha. The reality of existence as we have seen it is proof. Okay.
What else?
I mean, if you don't want to believe in telling it's in me, it's not in me. I gave that up a long time ago.
Of course.
I do not believe in a being of any divinity.
Don Sunim, to the topic of the show, I'm so glad that Stan called in because he's kind of said it better than I could. He's seen with his own eyes. I have in certain respects as well, kind of evidence of God's non-existence, or in his view. But what I'm seeing in your face here in the studio is that it doesn't matter. Like, are you saying that?
Can I jump into this conversation before the time runs out? Can I jump in?
Yes.
First of all, before I heard Stan say he was Jewish, I knew 1,000% he was Jewish. I just make that clear. I knew there was no doubt in my mind that Stan is a Jew. That's number one. He's like the typical person that comes to my Chabad house.
I'm not typical.
So
typical, he said.
Oh, typical. Okay, I'm not typical.
Typical. No,
You're not either. You're not either of those.
I mean, I'm not typical. I don't like typical people. I like people like you. Anyway, so first of all, I totally respect what you're saying. I'm not negating your feeling, what your experience is. You have a right to the way you feel, and that's your experience. But just to try to make a friendly debate backwards, to say there's no evidence of God, I think is a completely false statement. There is overwhelmingly evidence of God's existence.
We're back to the beginning of the show. You perfect ending.
It's actually, think about it. To not believe in God is almost as crazy as it is to believe in God. It's actually crazier. Meaning, I'm talking on for example.
That's Pascal's wager.
I'm talking on an iPhone right now. Now, if you ask me, Rabbi Yaakov, how did this iPhone come to be? I would say, I don't know.
Rabbi, we're gonna run out of time. I love the end news is perfect.
Let me just conclude with this point.
We're literally gonna get cut off. 10 seconds.
Okay. All right. 10 seconds. These things that happen as an example of why we don't understand God or we're angry with God. But the fact that they were angry with God for a Holocaust, why? Because 99.90% of what goes on in this world is good and blessing and amazing things.
Right. We wouldn't be angry at a being that didn't exist. We're gonna run out of time. We got to have you guys back on again.
Okay, fine.
Rabbi Yaakov.
Stan, I love you, by the way. I love you, Stan.
Stan.
Thank you. Good talk.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
God bless.
All right.
No
All
pun
the best,
intended.
guys. Have a good night.
Que bien